All right. Welcome to the February 6th, 2023 Cluster API AWS Infra Provider meeting. Um, I guess as we always say when we start off, uh, we are a Kubernetes SIGs CNCF, project, and we follow the CNCF code of conduct, which basically means be excellent to one another. And please, if you are attending the meeting, add yourself to the attendees list. If you've got any items for the agenda, uh, please add them to the meeting notes. We sometimes have PSAs. Today we don't, and um, this might be a brief one. Um, Also, if anybody is new here and you would like to introduce yourself, we always leave a little bit of time in the beginning. So I'll mute myself for a minute and feel free if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hey, I can jump in real quick. So I'm Tim Gelter. I'm on the team with Mike Tougeron. I believe you know him from previous meetings. He couldn't join today. I've been doing some work on the same team to do some gap analysis for the Kappa project as compared to our own internal tooling. So very interested in getting more involved, and so far been quite impressed with what I've seen. So yeah, that's me. Good to meet y'all.
Then I'll go next. So I'm Andreas from Giant Swarm. Just started working there at this managed Kubernetes company in December. And I straight got into a lot of work on Cluster API and Kappa specifically. And yeah, while upgrading to 2.x for Kappa, I already filed maybe 5 PRs last week. So quite involved right now in things. So just figured I might join here to see what's going on otherwise. So hi.
Welcome, Andres, and welcome, Tim. All right. We don't have any PSAs. Let me check back on the action items from last week. That was also kind of a brief meeting. There weren't a lot of us in attendance. Talked about release notes and did a bug triage. So yeah, I think at this point, since we don't have any PSAs, if anyone has anything they'd like to talk about or any questions, Tim, if you've got, if you're comparing internal tooling to Kappa, we would love to hear, some of your thoughts. If it's a full-fledged sort of feature request, we'd love a PR, or a bug. If you find some issue or something that doesn't behave as expected, very welcome. But yeah, you're also, if you'd like to talk about anything today, that would be great to hear. Andreas, I think same for you. You said you've got a few PRs, and then once we wrap up, that we sometimes go to bug triage. So if anybody feels like sticking around for that, we usually end the recording and then just go through the issues. So yeah, I'll mute myself, and yeah, if anybody's got anything to ask or talk about, please go right ahead.
So if it's okay, I'd go first just because I don't think I have as much perhaps to talk through. Mainly at this point, some of the initial stuff is done. I'm going to be doing deeper diving later on, so I may have some follow-ups in future meetings. But it seems like I'm finding equivalents for pretty much everything that we've been doing to operate our clusters over the last 5 years. So that's really encouraging. I think the biggest thing that I haven't really gotten a good answer from the documentation on yet is just how viable and how supportable is a migration, a brownfield migration of clusters to be managed by Kappa. It seems like there's some alpha functionality around that. Any sort of insight into how common that is and any things we'd want to be aware of would be super helpful.
I can say that we will have that use case in the future, so maybe this year. So grabbing existing clusters managed by other tooling and making CAPI manage it, but I don't have any experience with it yet. So just saying, yeah, this is a use case for more companies.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, we have several dozen clusters that are either in AWS or EKS. We're migrating currently away from AWS to the EKS platform, and so initial conversation I had with my management, they were kind of eyes wide open, thinking we might be doing migrations again. So yeah, hopefully we can just adopt our existing EKS clusters. AWS clusters, I think, would just be going away from our side. If that's at all helpful.
I've also have I guess maybe some encouraging news to share on on that use case. So we the previous version of our say lifecycle stack was not cluster API based, and we did migrate our users to Kappa, well for the AWS provider, and I would say I would say the biggest constraint is I think the topology. Depends on how you have your your VPC setup, your security groups. There are so many ways to slice and dice to get equivalent functionality, right? But it there can be some issues um, with migrating to Kappa, because Kappa may expect to manage let's say um, security groups in a particular way, or establish security groups for certain purposes, whereas maybe you were using a single security group and had security group rules sort of for those same purposes. There's also uh, uh, there may be an issue of migrating and how your load balancing is set up. And that's actually something that we found during our migration, and we upstreamed some functionality to adopt an existing control plane load balancer. So that's there, and that was essential for our migration use case. But it's definitely it's definitely not only possible, but I would say successful for us. So yeah, I guess as they say, the devil's in the details, but it's definitely it has been done.
Thank you for that insight. We'll definitely be digging in deeper as time goes on. We've got about a 12 months roadmap to try to figure all this stuff out. So we'll be digging in.
That would be great, and I would be, and I think others would be very happy to, we can talk about it at the meetings. We also have our Slack channel in the Kubernetes Slack. We could, so your experience is you're not, I think you're not finding a lot of information in the docs about this, and if we can work together and get some of this in the docs, it would. Yeah, it would help. It would help. Sort of everybody in the community, and also just you could probably figure out answers to the questions that you're having as well. So I think there's a great opportunity to contribute there.
Yeah, that sounds great. I was just going to ask what the channel name was. I'm going to go join now.
Cluster-API-AWS. And
Perfect.
you'll find that there's a similar channel for many of the popular infra providers, and in general, yeah, cluster-API- is a start
Yep,
to, I think, a number of channels. So
I'm in. Thank you very much. And I think we can move on from me to the next. Thank you.
Andreas, if I don't know if you wanted to speak, but
I can quickly talk about stuff I worked on last week. So PRs are mostly merged, and we're continuing. It was basically about upgrade issues I had because so I tried to upgrade from Kappa 1 dot something to 2 dot something, and basically took the commit from the main branch because we all have our own fork, so we wanted the latest. But I took the CRD from the latest release, so those were mismatching, and I ran into issues because of that. Not a biggie to talk about here, but what we then also found is that we currently blocked migrating to Kappa 2.x. I'll send you the issue. So basically, for AWS cluster object, you can specify subnets, and either it's bring your own, where you specify an ID of, let's say, Terraform manage or self-created ones, or you have Kappa manage the infrastructure. And the later one, so the managed infrastructure, that's broken now because of a totally unrelated change. And we talked to Richard Case, for example, and we set up a draft document for basically a bigger topic, namely rethinking the networking code in Kappa. So this might be something bigger where we, as an example, might introduce a separate object, AWS subnet, which makes it easier to manage stuff. So that's what we'll work on next. So bringing that use case back, because many users want to not bring their own, but really have Kappa manage everything, like VPC, subnets, security groups, and so on. And there we need to ensure that the code really supports this and doesn't confuse stuff. So yeah, I guess that's enough of a summary, just for you to know that there's an issue here. I think it's already in 2.0.0, so it is released, this problem, so people have an issue with this. And yeah, next would be this bigger draft. Internally, we will do a workaround for now because we only have the managed case. But yeah, then so Giants Former company will get a lot more involved in Kappa, and yeah, that will happen in the next weeks. Oh, I cannot hear you.
thanks. Sorry, I was muted. I started speaking.
You're muted.
I'm wondering. So we had a 2.0 beta release that was available for some time, and I'm wondering if could we have done something differently to maybe catch this issue during that beta period? Was there?
So for my company, I
was-
cannot tell.
Okay.
I cannot tell because I'm here for 2 months, just started, so I don't know how their migration or our expectations were for switching versions. But it was clearly a breaking change. So there was a PR for something else, which made the subnet ID field required, which clearly then rules out this case where Kappa can manage stuff. But the code is still there to manage subnet, right? So it was kind of removed by mistake, in a sense. And I think what Kalpi and Kappa overall should do is to clearly note down what use cases are supported. Because yeah, we had a meeting on that, and people said, yeah, Kappa and Kapi were pretty opinionated in the beginning. So there was one way to create your networking and stuff. And then as companies joined and used it more, of course, as always, they will have their own requirement. They want customization. And then you get so many use cases that it's hard to see which ones are actually supported. And for the one we talk about here, so managed subnets, I found that there is not even a unit test. A unit test for unmanaged, but not for managed. And yeah, so then it's hard to see as an author of a totally unrelated PR, do I break something or not? So I think that's what we should do now while authoring changes. If we could have done something different, I don't know. I was not there yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I wonder if this might have been compounded by the 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 managed the managed clusters EKS that was in an experimental I guess it was experimental for a long time, and it was in a separate API, and so there may have been uh yeah it may have been hard to see some of the interaction um, or for example lack of testing for some use case. um, okay, so this is I mean, it looks like we've already triaged and we're looking at this, so
Exactly, it's
that's
more of an
great.
FYI because it's kind of an important topic.
um, okay, I think the next um, I guess I think that covers the sort of the agenda that we have today. And I would just say I'll stop the recording and do some issue triage. If anybody feels like sticking around, it's totally optional. Um, oh, raise hand. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Amit Kumar. I am from India. I am undergraduate student. I am currently volunteering CAPI version 1.4 releasing team. So there I have a lead shadow role. So like I have just applied for LFX mentorship in Kappa. So like I was today, so like I just trying to upload my first cluster on AWS cluster, like AWS cloud. So like I found that in getting started, there were many links broken. Like I've just like left a link in the chat. There is already an open issue regarding that. There are a lot of links broken. That links is already working in cluster API, but in Kappa that are not working.
Great, welcome. First of all, Ahmed, it's great to have you. Thank you for joining. Through the LFX mentorship program. Is this something that you are ready to work on, or did you have some questions that need to be answered, or?
I am ready to work on, but I just want to know like how can I fix this issue? Like it's
Ah, okay. If you can, I don't know how long, how far you've gotten with, with cloning the repository, but if these if these links are, broken in the cluster API AWS book, so the documentation, then it'll all be in the repo, and so I think the description, um, you should be able to find some of these. You could probably search the repo and do some string matching, or actually look in. Let's see, is it going to be docs book? I think that's where you'll find docs book source, and the various docs will be there. Does that help you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. So I will, let's see, stop the recording.